Hello there everyone and welcome back. You have decided with the poll for what faction I should focus on for at least season 4, and we're going to be playing as Imperial Navy. And truth be told, I do want to try and experiment with multiple different type of fleets. The only problem with that, of course, is that it's going to evolve. Well, it's going to hinder my progress on trying to rank up as quick as I can, so ultimately, I am mainly going to start with this Lance fleet that I've been adoring and been just enjoying the possibility of the Apocalypse doing damage. But I do want to go back to my original fleet there with the Dauntless and the heavy macro cannon reliance and see if we can make that work. I already made a tweak to it that kind of downgrade the Executioner, or the Exorcist rather, for at least a Dictator. I don't know if this is the ideal choice, but we do it's still the same fleet as it was before. It's just a matter of fine-tuning it and seeing how it works out. But otherwise, like I said, we're going to be focusing on the Lance fleet and see how we do there. And if by chance you didn't see how my Azuyani playthrough went through, or how it went rather, I am basically going to be doing the commentary after the match themselves, to try and minimize the amount of distraction and be able to ideally focus on the game itself as a result. Although I already got myself a bit of a head start, it seems like. I don't know if this is like 3 or 4 wins worth of victories, but nonetheless, I'm going to be trying this for around 3 weeks roughly, unless we're getting really close to the legendary rank. That might be the exception here, and we'll try not to have it drag on as long as it was before when I was playing with the Azuyani. Okay, first match to start us off, and we are facing off against Tyranids. And this should, in theory, be really good for me in a lot of ways, since I do have the melta torpedoes and just regular dumbfire torpedoes to kind of do a lot of damage early on. The catch, of course, always is on how quickly I can reveal my adversary here, and ideally reveal the majority of their fleet. Since melta torpedoes are pretty amazing in this matchup, since they don't have an easy way to just immediately repair away the fire results, as opposed to almost all the other factions in the game. So you're going to get full damage potential out of it over time, in a sense that makes the torpedoes almost as powerful as the Eldari torpedoes. They just miss out on the critical hit chance, and you kind of have to wait, 45 seconds roughly, for the fire damage to kick in. But it's still really damn effective when it works in, or when it works rather. But I do kind of forget to switch up my upgrades, but I do have the beacon on at the very least, and that's going to help a ton. For, like, if you've seen my Eldari matchups against Tyranids, I like to use the beacons as well as whatever fighter bays I have access to kind of serve as like an area of denial, and to give me a little bit of confidence on where I can go safely. In this case, my opponent's going to be consistently and constantly rushing with their ships. So I'm almost always going to have a vague sense of where they're at, and the fact that I did hear the rushes before launching the beacon did help to a limited extent on where to aim. Although truth be told, I still was going to fire it ahead of the central objective anyway. But there's the rushes as I was kind of preluding, and I'm going to be paying attention to this a lot since I want to try and do the damage at least as early as I can. And while Lancers are not exactly the best weapon for utilizing against shields, especially without the disruption overcharge to kind of keep the shields down as per the bug, and the additional damage that the upgrade even confers. So this is a situation where macro cannons can be more handy if I can consistently hit with them. But that's the plan, that's the idea, trying to get in that sweet spot where all my ships can fire unhindered, while my opponent's kind of forced to try and get close to me. And this should be a Pyroacid type of fleet. It is a bit of a different type of Pyroacid fleet, since it's not going to be like the traditional 3 hive ships as we noticed before. I don't know if the nerfs, including the increase to their point costs, have made that a lot more difficult to do or not, since it's been forever since I played Pyroacid myself to truly know. But they are utilizing a handful of light cruisers for whatever reason, even though the Krakens have the exact same kind of Pyroacid, so I would kind of go with the argument it might be better to have them as opposed to the light cruisers or even the cruisers in a lot of situations. You're just really missing out on the extra durability, the shields, and the possibility of doing good boarding damage. But beacons in place, we see the fighters, that's kind of confirming what I already know, so there's nothing too exciting there. And I'm recalling the fighters to maybe scout out on another direction there. I think I launched it far to the right though, even though my opponent's going to start turning to the left and try and circle around this beacon and avoid detection. Which thankfully, this is what this frigates do, although I did burn the scanner pulse because I heard those rushes, just kind of as security. And I do it again thinking my opponent was just hugging the beacon, since I did hear that rush to kind of give me that tell. And this fighter, although, it's mostly for security because I'm planning on moving this way, since I have no confidence going leftward, where my frigates are currently, since I did hear the rushes. This gives me the extra of that area denial, and the confidence to at least allow me that idea, or at least allow me the possibility to move here a little more safely towards the right. And maybe grab the objective here while I'm at it. But my opponent's basically gone around the left beacon. They're going to be making their move pretty damn soon, and the fighters give that away as well. I did not notice the silhouette to really know how close they are, but if you just heard that rushing, you know they're close, as made apparent from the identification we're getting, thankfully, due to this frigate. So it is a bit of an awkward angle. I'm not exactly happy with this position since my ships are not able to get their focus fire ideally, since they are almost entirely on my stern as a result of my preemptive positioning to kind of move away from the Tyranids. But keep in mind on the Pyre Asset. The Pyre Asset's always going to shoot at the closest ship presented to him, which is why I'm boosting these cruisers as I am. Once the shields go down, I'm going to try and swap them around and allow another cruiser to try and soak up the damage to minimize the fire results I might be suffering here. But I really don't like this position. My Nova Cannon's not going to be able to do damage. It's going to take an eternity to turn around. Never mind the fact I'm hitting several different ships at once, so it's a little precarious despite my opponent, well, almost gained the jump on me there. But I still have ramming potential, I still have torpedoes. It's just a matter of turning around with the battle cruisers to try and allow to maximize damage. And with the shields about to come down, I think Disruption Bomb did help with that. And this, Void Lurker ability does help with me wanting to commit to this engagement. They burnt the rushes, they burnt their blink. There is no way this hive ship should be able to dodge these melt torpedoes. And as a result of their shields being down, we basically get, what, 7 or so fire assaults? It's a good start, even though the flagship's kind of taking a world of hurt right now. It's on all sorts of fire, which I just negated, but I only get to do that once though. So if this punishment continues, it is going to burn. But now I'm going to combo this again with more torpedoes. These are more of the dumbfire torpedoes, but they do a good amount of damage. I don't commit with the ramming the best though, since I was trying to fire and move with 3 ships at once as opposed to individual. But I don't need to tell you how effective it was. You can kind of see the results for itself even. Now, thankfully, there's only one hive ship left. They are running away, which does help me a small extent since now they can't really shoot at me in any good form. And my cruisers are going to try and clamp the mess. And while I was expecting to not be able to get at this hive ship, that turns around quickly, doesn't it? I don't need to tell you what's going to happen next, that poor thing, with all the fire assaults and the extra torpedoes it's about to take. It is dead. We got 3 light cruisers left to us to deal with, and they're about to suffer their mutiny as a result of their flagship, the last hive ship, dying. And I'm pretty certain they had access to the synaptic relay as well. I'm pretty certain of it. I know I checked it. I just have another Tyranid match after this, which is where I'm confusing this a tiny bit. But it was a nice solid victory, a bit of an awkward engagement for me though at the very beginning. Since they were completely on my stern, I didn't get the focus fire I would like because of that positioning. And yeah, they did have the synaptic relay. I was wondering about that. So it was pretty straightforward. Still a question of what the light cruisers were for, as opposed to the Krakens though. Okay, this is going to be more of the same Imperial Navy versus Tyranids, and from what we can see, Our opponent is definitely higher rank, which I'm assuming that's epic rank, unless there's like a display of some kind that I'm oblivious to that would represent that maybe they're a legend player. Although, I'm going with the assumption they're epic, and we are going to be facing off against Pyracids yet again. Only this time, my opponent is going to make it blatantly obvious that they're using Pyracid. And what I'm going to mean by that is that the Pyracids normally are the only weapons that can benefit off of tracking senses, since you don't need to increase your sensor range all that much, which tracking senses gives you, as the Bioplasma only really shoots at like 9,000 range at most, and it is almost never used in general, and everything else is like point blank range type of boarding centric type of weaponry, if I were to be honest. Whereas the Pyracid, especially for hive ships, can only shoot at, what is it, 13,000 range, and that's only for the hive ships. Everything else is 9,000 unit range, so they don't need the extended sensor range. And there's where you're hearing the cues right there. It may be a little bit more muted for you, but it is obnoxiously loud for me. And even more indication of Bioplasma, or not Bioplasma, but Pyracid. This is where I get that sense. Sure, having a frigate, a single frigate, is not really a tale in itself, but when the entire fleet gives away they're using tracking senses, whether that's a glitch or a bug or not, it doesn't really matter. There's not really a whole lot of practical value for the Bioplasma to benefit from it. Outside, well, it does. I may be wrong in that factor. It's just Bioplasma is almost never used, and the additional critical hit's not much of a factor either. I want to make the argument at least. But I know what to expect. It's just a question of where they are yet again. And this time, we have a nice little defensive point if I'm fortunate enough to get these three objectives in the middle, directly in front of where my fleet is. Although, I think I didn't place the beacon the best. I could have put it a little bit further, as I think I only put it slightly in front, in between these two objectives in the center. I could have gotten away with a lot more, as kind of that fighter silhouette where I'm launched the fighters kind of gives away. It doesn't give me as much security if my opponent's going to be going that long range route, or rather the Pyracid route. That would be my big criticism. And they do rush some. I am going to be listening for rushes, and there you're hearing it right now, in fact. So, I do have a good sense of where to go. It's not a big threat. It's just, again, a matter of using that beacon a little more aggressively, so that way I can have that confidence to dive these objectives. As it stands now, I second guess that maneuver and just turned 90 degrees already. Although, I guess my opponent was caught completely off guard or unprepared for a double extended range or the deployment of the beacon. For all these vanguards are about to get revealed, and there are going to be a lot of them. Instead of the 3 hive ships that we're used to seeing, we're going to have 2 hive ships and a devourer, which is going to be the flagship at that, so it's going to be pretty standard, pretty traditional. The only main benefit that these vanguards give you is the convenience of being able to focus fire your target. The catch, those vanguards need to get within 4,500 unit range, close range at that. So it's highly unlikely these vanguards are going to live very long when they get that close, even if my focus is on the lances and not so much the macro cannons. And with me positioned properly to kind of deal with these vanguards easily, with no sign of the hive ships at all, I'm really comfortable with this. And hell, with the giveaway of the hive ships because I boosted my frigate in there, we're also going to see where these hive ships are. So I'm not caught off guard. I'm just thinking all this time that there may be a 3rd hive ship, so I'm kind of cautious about that, especially with this frigate's positioning, which is where that scanner pulse was for, to at least make me confident I can push forward more as I'm thinning out the frigate count. Since sure, Krakens are amazing, I love the Krakens to death with their potential, these vanguards with only, what is it, 76 armor, or 67 armor, I apologize, are a lot less, a lot more flimsy. They're gonna die a lot quicker than the Krakens ever will, even with the shield health. And keep in mind, the Krakens also regenerate their health too, so that's also a big factor. On top of the fact that my opponent could be concealing these frigates as well, just using the spore fields, and maybe even chemionic skin if they're utilizing it to just hide themselves. So, I'm just getting nice easy pickings right now. Hell, I think I even killed all the frigates barring the one that's currently chasing me. At least that's what it looks like. And now I'm going to focus my prize on the hive ship, which thankfully, the disruption bomb worked beautifully. The one ship I'm focused on, although this celestial body is kind of making things awkward for me. But I am still getting the hull damage. We're softening this thing up for the vicious counterattack that will come when they do finally get in close range. But for now, this is all free damage. And I guess I was wrong about the frigate count. I figured they'd die a lot more faster to kind of emphasize my point on how flimsy they can be with the reduced armor compared to the Krakens. They are probably a little bit cheaper as well, but... Or maybe I'm mistaken for drones. Oh, they are drones. The Vanguards at least would have 400 health, I think. So, they're not even benefiting from the potential of focus firing that way. So, never mind this monologue I've been doing for the past minute. But what you would pay attention to is the onslaught that's about to happen with these torpedoes. My opponent is recklessly charging into me, so I don't need to tell you how painful that is as a result. With the Devourer, the flagship's kind of revealed, but we're well underway to killing off this hive ship. And just now, the shields are going down for 2 of my cruisers. And I think firing a second salvo of melted torpedoes was kind of redundant, since I think I only got 3 fire results of a possible 8. But you see the point, you see the results regardless. I just probably could have done that a little bit better, as I dodged my own disruption bomb. Hive ship's gone, Devourer is kind of all sorts of screwed, and despite this angle, I sadly hit the prow of this cursed thing, so I don't get the ramming damage I would have loved in this situation. But with it pushed the way it was, that's not a big issue. I can at least have this other ship, and hell, I even turned it around to get ready for a proper torpedo arc. But I haven't had much of an opportunity to use my Nova cannons just yet in these type of matchups. But at the end of the day, this match is kind of very similar to what it was with my previous match. Although my opponent gave away what they were utilizing, it would not have really made much of a difference on how I would have pursued this. I still would have tried to keep them at arm's length as much as possible, and then look for a window to dive bomb them with my spurs and my torpedoes, which I gotta say is working beautifully. It's just the awkwardness of having to avoid the prow of this one cruiser. And the Nova Can finally gets to see its light. A killing blow in a hive ship, no less. It's the one thing I love about this apocalypse. It is the only ship with a Nova Can in the fleet, but it can do work if the opponent is careless or completely forgets about that weapon, since I try to withhold using it as often as I can. But I like to think they were still a fearsome opponent. I just do question the heavy amount of frigates, in all honesty, since again, the Krakens have better firepower compared to the other frigates, and comparable to even the cruisers. Alright, let's mix things up by now facing off against Orks, and while we're not facing off against like Bad Moons or the Evil Suns as normal, it's not going to be, at least by perspective, it's not going to be a whole lot different than how my Tyranid match is played out. The only difference, of course, is I'm going to see my opponents coming from a mile away. And they're going to be utilizing, what, a handful of battle cruisers, I think? Or at least some kind of cruisers there with a battleship serving as the flagship. It is still going to be mega cannons though, so I'm going to have to take those weapons seriously. Since if they start hitting my side, if they start hitting any vulnerable cruisers, they're going to take a lot of critical hits and they're going to probably get crippled really damn quickly. I'm going to be having to rely a lot on my prow armor and of course good use of the torpedoes. Maybe not so much the ramming itself, since it's going to be really difficult to ram something that actually is effective for me, since Orks almost always have their prow facing me unless I can outmaneuver them, or in a risky prospect boost past them and then just turn my ships around maybe. They're I'm not going to get a lot of ramming damage, at least as much as I would like for the 83 armor if our prows were to hit each other. So it's going to be chipping them down, trying to look for any critical hits to kind of open up a possibility to get aggressive. And I'm even going to utilize the supercharged void shield on the flagship to see if that can be useful to mitigate a lot of that mega cannon damage that I could go up against. And hell, Kulex's assassin can be really damn powerful here, especially with how much more Riley the Orks can be, having like the minus 50% to the bravery. I'm doing what? I don't think it's 750. It should be like 625 morale damage if I'm understanding it correctly. I want to think. Well, actually, it's technically 750. Who am I kidding? I'm assuming that's the case. In all honesty, I never really checked to be sure, but either way, with their decks being damaged or just a little bit of fire assault on them, a lightning strike on the flagship with the Kulex's assassin is going to instantly cause a mutiny. The trick will be making sure the flagship burns its repairs, or at least doesn't have the convenience of rallying that ship if I want to stick. And I'm firing these torpedoes kind of to help compound on that a little bit. Try and force some early repairs since... no, actually I'm wrong. These are all dumbfire torpedoes. I was going to say that one of those torpedoes would have been a Melta salvo, which I don't think I did for this match. I'm thinking of the next one against Chaos, which I believe is where I stagger them, or at least spread out the torpedo shots that way. And we see a bunch of fighters. We see all the ships, including the battleship, although I didn't identify the ship, but with it hanging back, I can kind of freely shoot these things without having to worry about the battleship, so for now. Although, none of my torpedoes connect because of the fact that these are all cruisers instead of battleships. Since I don't think the mega cannon battleships even have fighter bays available to them. So, I could have done a good amount of at least damage to soften them up, but the fighters at the brace for impact rather, did negate that. So I'm going to withhold on firing more torpedoes despite how tempting this arc is. I might fire them after a little bit when the fighters are going to get recalled, or ideally when I can get a much more reliable hit. But right now, we're just preparing for the engagement. I got the range, I got the lances to at least get through the shields relatively quickly. It's partly the reason why I didn't bother with the disruption bomb here, since almost all the ships have 200 shields anyway, so the disruption bomb is incredibly limited. And hell, yeah, there's where I was thinking of firing our torpedo salvo, and thought better of it.
The enemy has seized a strategic
But now,
area.
I'm trying to see about, well, all the ships are prioritized to destroy their deck, with the exception of maybe one of the ships. I think I go after the engine instead. But Novacan's going to be firing. It's going to either force an early boost or just do a bunch of additional damage. And thankfully, we get both. Kind of the best of both worlds in this case. Now, with what? The deck's permanently destroyed? That thing is in the middle of a proper plasma bomb, so I think it's about to have a mutiny right off the bat. No, actually, it took very little morale damage for a plasma bomb. I'm a little bit shocked there, if I were to be honest. But they are burning rally, the ships are now getting isolated, and this is where I like to start looking for the possibility of torpedoes, since now the fighters will not be able to respond as effectively. Hell, the fighters aren't even launched just yet. So while I'm not going to get this thing to break, we're just going to try and murder it right now. We got fire assaults, we got dumbfire torpedoes, and a really good arc. Not the best damage since the third cruiser barely hit anything, but it's still a damn good salvo. And there's the mutiny finally, with the fire assaults possibly going to finish off. So we're in good shape, but the Orks are all about close range firefighting, so they're about to get in range in a moment. So this is where I'm gotta be prepared. Hell, the frigates are contributing for once. I'm actually utilizing the frigates in an aggressive manner. I've learned from the ways of the Adeptus Mechanicus and the other factions that have been utilizing heavy amounts of frigates. I only got 2 firestorms though to complement this fleet. But with the fire assaults. That is in good shape of breaking early on. And I used Supercharged Void Shield to at least try and absorb the Novacan shot, but unfortunately it was not even needed. I even managed to recharge some of my shields as a bonus there, oddly enough. Which is probably the nature of the long rate of fire that these Mega Cannons and Saps have, if I were to be honest. But that's 2 ships down. A third one's about to break. This is rapidly turning my favor. And hell, the shields are immediately gone on these 2 ships, so I can just immediately start softening up these other ships. And slowly start to finish this off. We haven't even seen the battleship just yet. Although it is contributing. It does have lances, and oddly enough, instead of double mega cannons, this thing has the torpedoes on it. Which is a little bit odd, since I did check the cruisers, but I never did think to check the battleship. Mainly because I never revealed it. But we got mutinies, the decks are gone, and apparently the ship, I suppose, burnt this rally already. So there's not much else to see. We're just gonna witness this thing slowly melt from all sorts of fire. And sure, my one cruiser is about to lose its crew, but this has been a solid victory, I won't argue. And the frigates up top are not really much of a threat either. I don't even know what kind of frigates they are, since my opponent's going to be conceding momentarily, I think. Hell, I'm wondering if they concede in the next moment, or... Oh no, I'm probably wrong in that factor. I'm forgetting. Either way, I don't even know what the frigates are up top. But it's been simple, it's been almost exactly how the Tyranid matches have been. Just minus the need to have to actually reveal their ships. And really not much else to say. So far we're looking good at the first series of matches, and hell, I did have an extra match with my first Tyranid opponent, but it was pretty much the same as it was before. A little more awkward since I kind of forgot to put my beacon on my flagship, but it was still a victory nonetheless. So there was not much need to showcase a match that we kind of already seen, at least with the same fleet and same opponent. So now we're going to move on to the Chaos match next. Okay, now we're going to face off against Chaos like I hinted at, and we're not going to be dealing with Slanesh or Siege or anything like that, as a given. So we don't have to worry about the extra tricks that Chaos have available to them, and this is going to be a pretty straightforward type of fleet. Although it is still going to be a bit of an awkward fleet, since my opponent is oddly enough deciding to use a bunch of light cruisers, and that probably goes to them being less experienced, so maybe this is not going to be the most exciting match as a result of that, but hopefully that will change as we progress through the series here. I'm not going to drag it out nearly as long as it was before with the Adriani, but I still would like to make a real attempt to get the legend rank, as I already, well, that's kind of a given, isn't it? Since the focus of this series and video is trying to get as high a ranking as I can. But it's going to be pretty different, because all this time I'm thinking my opponent is using slaughters, since I am keeping track of the speed of the cruisers, or at least the light cruisers, to see how fast they go. I just was completely oblivious that they were actually light cruisers, since they weren't solid running or anything. So I don't know what to make of this match. It is going to be a drawn out type of match at that, since my opponent is going to be kiting me quite heavily, and at the very least, the light cruisers are very damn well equipped to at least keep range that way. Since they do have the additional speed, they just don't quite have the firepower, which is going to be apparent as this match progresses. They still do have a despoiler though. They're going to have a battleship to serve as their flagship and the anchor, but... Oh yeah, I was wondering why the hell the audio cut out. It was... For some reason something was going on there. I'm trying to remember what it was. I can't for the life of me remember, but that's why audio cut out. Since I did alt tab out briefly to try and check something. I'm just not sure what the hell it was though. But with that said, let's get on with the match. and get started with the onslaught that's may be ensuing here. Since after all, we are dealing with light cruisers, their firepower is not going to be much of a threat, and the possibility of critical hits is going to really be prevalent here. Even though I do prioritize the deck on most and the engine on the last one there. Or hell, okay, I got backwards. I prioritized the deck on the one I'm expecting to at least focus fire on. So that way the Culexus Assassin could start taking effect in that regard. Since again, destroying the deck immediately kills half their morale, and that synergizes so amazingly well with the Culexus Assassin, provided I can actually get within reach and have their shields down for that lightning strike. Either way, this is where I begin to start keeping track of my opponent's speed. Well, hell, I probably already did that already if I were to be honest. I do check multiple times to be sure, because I am contemplating that maybe they're slaughters, and start preparing myself for a very aggressive and close-range type of firefight as a result of this. And so much so, until I see these fighter bays coming out for the light cruisers, I was going to have this apocalypse kind of group up and conceal itself in the asteroid belt, which is going to work amazingly since we're dealing with fighter bay light cruisers. Although I think these are just being used defensively right now. I fired the torpedoes, I did stagger them a bit, and sadly none of them are going to hit thanks to the support of the fighter bays. Hell, I didn't even realize my opponent was not even using stances right now, so this is going to be a little bit simplistic so far, I think, especially once those critical hits start hitting. I just need to keep hitting them with the lances. Novacan is here to get them moving, and I think my opponent just now starts utilizing their assault running, since I do lose contact of at least, okay, both the light cruisers right now. It does them a little good, because the Novacan still connects. It doesn't care about vision, I just need to know where you're at. Now, the cruisers are revealed. It wasn't all light cruisers, I guess it was just 3 light cruisers, so I'm not entirely sure what to make of this fleet, but I guess it's going to be bomber boarding centric, which is, even then, they have a despoiler, or desolator as opposed to a despoiler. So it's not quite focused just yet, and hell, I'm going to have an easy time just shooting down these bombers. I think I even concealed myself in the asteroid belt, so these things are just going to ignore me for the time being. Which makes this situation all the better for me, since my opponent is very limited in their firepower right now. I'm just not doing the best job of focusing my damage, since these light cruisers are being a little bit hit-in right now. But with Disruption Bomb, well, with them stuck in a Stasis Bomb, this Disruption Bomb is going to compound on this. And it times out really damn well for when these cruisers are about to recharge their shields too. I'm just going to be trying to look for a window to maybe do a bit of boarding. It's going to have to be put on hold due to the stasis bombs their own, kind of forcing me to maneuver a bit. Not that it's a big issue. The benefit of the lances is they completely ignore the projectile slow of the stasis bombs, so I could kind of use this as a defensive weapon to an extent. Although the frigate's going to die a horrible death. It's going to get bored heavily, and I try and circle around to keep it alive for a little bit longer, and at the very least avoid getting rammed. As I get my first engine critical hit on the cruiser, and it's about to die a horrible death to the Nova Cannon. Nova Cannon scores yet another kill. It's nice and convenient that way. Although, I do call to arms trying to mitigate this boarding damage, although it may not have been necessary, truth be told. Since I probably would have been critical, or at least in, was it the third phase? I don't know what those intervals are called, but either way, I probably would have suffered enough fire results to get this thing killed. But I try to keep it alive nonetheless. I put the extra effort into it, and while it's concealed, it is about to break right now, and I don't think I pay much attention to it from here on out. But my opponent is conveniently ignoring the objective. They're running off. My frigate did have a mutiny, and then it just got spotted as a result of that. So, my attempts to keep it alive were short-lived. But the frigate's going to grab the objective there. I'm going to start pushing to maybe gain this 4th point, and start softening them up when I can. Although I was seriously contemplating switching out my short burn torpedo upgrades for the 25 armor to the shields, or even the faster shield recharge. Both of these could have been good upgrades. I was seriously considering, since I don't feel confident I'm going to get good torpedo hits at this arc, especially with my opponent boosting away from me. It's when I get in close that I can comfortably do that, but I do make good use of the Nova cannons. I'm waiting for them to burn the combustion gauge before firing the next shot on these cruisers. And we're about to get that right now, here's hoping. The torpedoes, I'm not comfortable in utilizing unless I can get close enough to that Desolator. That might be the exception, but this Nova cannon is doing work right now. Once their shields are down, it's nice, easy 300-400 points of damage. It has some really good value and I want to experiment with that more. But we're probably going to see what I mean here a little bit, where I'm going to try and fire these torpedoes on these cursed cruisers. It's not going to work out very well because I think the bombers are actually going to start shooting down a couple of these points of defense. But I did get my fighters out in time, so most of those bombers have been negated. Actually, am I actually going to connect here? It doesn't seem like the most amount of damage. We're just not going to witness it. And since I think those were melted torpedoes, we're not even going to hear the audio cue either. So maybe I just assumed the torpedoes did nothing there, since I'm kind of fixated on this cruise battleship right now. And we are getting a bit of latency spikes now all of a sudden too. But my opponent's backed into a corner. Yeah, that's where I get the idea. There are no fire assaults and again, no audio cues to kind of suggest I hit with any of the torpedoes either. So they didn't quite get their mark, but I do have 4 objectives, or at least 3, with the 4th about to be secured by my frigate right now. And I'm going to get ready to fire my final Nova cannon shot here. I'm just waiting for those boosters to get spent. And I think I do use summary execution to try and speed these ships forward. Start putting the pressure, tightening the noose on my opponent. Although, let's see, one of them is going to be hanging back since, it's still on cooldown. It wasn't really available like I thought it would be. But now we're just playing a game of chicken here. My opponent's going to run for me, I'm going to see about hunting him down. And I think they're going to boost just in time with the Desolator here. Well, I take that back. We do get some decent hits in. Just the 5 torpedoes, but still decent damage. Now, if only those were melted torpedoes, that would be really nice. Hell, it might even been enough to maybe cause a mutiny on that thing. I don't know exactly how much morale damage those do. It will be pretty important to keep an eye on that so I know for future matches. But I've kind of neglected, or at least avoided the cruisers, or at least I'm not going to chase the cruisers because I got a perfect opportunity to go after this battleship. And while I was really hoping to get a Kulexis assassin on its ass, it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't meant to be this time around. This thing is just too damn slow. The one little negative quirk of taking some of the slowest ships in the game, I suppose. Either way, that battleship's going to completely evade. I'm going to turn my attention to the cruisers now since we're getting relatively close. But the battleship's all sorts of screwed right now. It's just not going to die just yet, I believe. I'm just going to try and mitigate the shields, or at least mitigate the damage on my hull. And then turn an eye to these ships. And I think I switched the brace for impact here. Yes, I do. So those assault ships do absolutely nothing. And right now I'm checking for torpedoes. The front one has temporary damage, and we have temporary damage on the back one as well, I believe. So I'm limiting my torpedo uses to take advantage of this close range engagement. And even then, only one fire assault kind of connected, sadly. But I do get my ramming damage in to make up for it. It's not the best type of arc, since I do hit myself a tiny bit due to that awkward bounce. But my opponent's now in all sorts of a panic. And I have fighters that are kind of distract the point defense to maybe get a good Melta shot in. There we go. 2 fire assaults, a mutiny. The flagship just died, I believe. No, it's actually hit in the gas cloud. I take that back. I think it just completely disengaged right now. I'm assuming that ship is the flagship anyway. Even though it looks like I was kind of hammering it with lances all this time. And that is game. A bit of a drawn out match. Which, if these were kind of like the standard cruisers with the lances, this would definitely have been a contender, or at least a match that I would have been worried for. Since I didn't quite get to do the damage I needed to, and they probably would have got some really good critical hits on me as well. So if those were heavy lances, if those were Acrons and all that, then I would have probably been forced to kind of win that through the objective, I think. Since I was threatening to grab the 5th point on the top right on my opponent's side. So I was in good shape there, it's just making sure they were crippled enough if I were to lose that engagement.